Welcome to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams, and our producer Ed Salzadell, all directors at the San Antonio Bible-Based Science Association. We are here to reassure you can believe the Bible from the very first verse. Carl, you've had most of the discussions with Jim Bendewald. If you'd take over.
All right, Jim, it's good to have you back. And this time we're going to talk about another one of your DVDs, this one called Earth Battles, How Old Is It? And you just recently produced that and released that along with our big design and the DNA battles. What can you say that's unique about Earth Battles?
We had our graphic artists produce a 3D animations to illustrate the biblical flood model. And Dr. Andrew Snelling is a director of sorts explaining that model. It's beautifully done, and it provides a visual explanation for what happened during and after the flood.
Okay. Now, as far as the graphics, I have seen those. I watched your DVD, and I was very impressed with that. Now, as far as Andrew Snelling and his discussion of the age of the Earth, what were the main thrusts or main topics that he discussed, and how did you bring those out in the documentary? I know he talked about his book, the rate book. He talked about that some, and he talked about the formation of the different bent layers. In fact, you had some other folks on the video that talked about the bent layers that we see all throughout the Grand Canyon. And you and a friend took a tour of the Grand Canyon as part of this video. How was that?
So, Guy Forsyth is an avid hiker around the Sedona, Arizona area.
Which is beautiful.
Sedona is very beautiful, yes. He works with the various creation ministries, all the major ones. And Guy, when he was hiking, he found in the Coconino Sandstone, in this Coconino Sandstone layer, numerous examples of what's called parabolic recumbent folds. Well, let me explain parabolic recumbent folds. Parabolic is in the shape of a capital U. So just think of a big capital U. And then recumbent means that it's laid back, it's horizontal in contrast to being upright, and then folds, So these folds show that the layer, the Coconino Sandstone layer, was laid down while soft and pliable at one time, not over millions of years. You really have to see the video and pictures to appreciate it, but you just have to imagine, how could you possibly have these massive curves happen over millions of years after they'd already been laid down and were hard? It's not going to fold that way. Rocks do not bend, they break, right? So it has to be soft and pliable when they're laid down. I believe Earth Battles is the first documentary to present video and pictures with explanations of the folds. And in the documentary, we have extensive section, as you were talking about, Carl, that deals with the topic of folds. Folds are very powerful evidence that that they exist and were laid down while still soft and moist. The folds are not able to be formed after they've hardened. So these unique folds provide a very powerful evidence that the Coconino Sand layer, in fact, the whole thing was laid down under catastrophic conditions in mass, not sand grain by sand grain, over millions of years, as conventional geologists claim.
Yes, and you even went over how the sand grain deposition looked and how some people thought it was wind-driven, and you have evidence that it was done by water flow as opposed to airflow to make these crystals form. Now, as far as a graphic that you did, they were excellent, and it's kind of like taking a stack of pancakes, which is what the rock layers are oftentimes compared to. If you took a fresh stack of pancakes and folded them, they will fold, and it's not a problem. But if they were made of rock, they kind of wouldn't fold too well. It's like taking a stack of the old vinyl records and trying to fold those suckers, and we might have a few problems. So that is a very powerful answer to evolutionists who say it took millions of years for those layers to form, and you have to kind of look them square in the eye and say, hey, listen, how can you possibly have folded rocks and have them intact? Now, one other thing you talked about layers and stuff you found in them, and how about nautiloids?
Yes. Well, nautiloids are also fascinating. They are a particular species, a marine-type species, and what they were able to identify is that they flowed in a particular direction. Not only that, some of the nautiloids, because they had been buried rapidly, they're actually upright in direction. And so it's like, how could they possibly have been laid down that way and have been covered over with millions of years of time, sand grain by sand grain? If they're upright, they would have decayed and been wiped away long ago. So it was clearly a fast burial kind of situation.
You are listening to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams. If you would like to learn more, go to sabsa.org. That is sabbsa.org. Today we're talking with Jim Bendewald from Evidence Press. Jim, have you got anything else in the pipe that we can look forward to?
Actually, yes. We are working this coming summer. We plan to finish up our filming for Mount St. Helens. So, Earth Battles, How Old Is It, is actually Volume 1. That's the Grand Canyon. We're going to do a Volume 2 that'll be made up of Mount St. Helens and the Yellowstone Park area with Specimen Ridge. And there's some fascinating geological features with those two areas that we're going to be talking about. And we're going to be doing some things that I think are going to be unique that others haven't done yet.
Well, Jim, we talked a lot about your videos, but one thing we've failed to do is to let people know, how do you go about getting those videos?
Oh, thank you, yeah. So they're available at evidencepress.com website, and people can purchase the DVDs individually or, say, purchasing a bundle, and we provide free shipping. They're also available in streaming format for only $5 each, as well as a downloadable format at $10 each, where you can get 5 for $30.
All right. Had a number of great people come through our organization. One of them was, we had the privilege of having Randy Galuza as one of our board members about 15 years ago. He's now the head of ICR. And one of his comments, an article he did recently, was the belief that creation doctrine and a belief in young earth creation and creation in 6 days, as the Bible spells out, is foundational to every other doctrine within the Bible. I see within your videos a belief in that same worldview. Would you comment on that?
Sure. Creation is something that I wish was discussed more. I'm disappointed that so many people will say, well, this is not a salvation issue, and so I'm not going to really worry about it that much. Where I agree, it's not a salvation issue, but at the same time, it's still an issue that has to do with the validity and authority of God's Word. And so, if the Bible is true from the first verse until the last verse, that is a very important message for all people, young people, all people. Now, if we can be flexible and say, well, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, well, that's different. It doesn't really fit with our understanding of science and history, therefore we're going to go ahead and change, we're going to make it more metaphorical. Well, what does that say about the rest of the Bible? What does it say about what Paul said about creation, about, Adam and Eve, the historicity of Adam and Eve? What does it say about what Jesus said regarding Eve, that they existed from the beginning? And so, yeah, this is a tremendously important topic, and so I'm glad to be a part of it.
Now, Jim, one more thing. You have a different website that's not necessarily creation science based. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it just happened this last fall. I think it's very important. It goes back to the days of being a church planter again. I was mystified when I was just trying to start a church that there's all these churches, but everybody's in their own little world. Even though we're in the same denomination, I felt that the churches were really not all that eager to work together and help us as a small, struggling church. So over the years, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to have a ministry that was based on Acts 1:8, which states, but you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses, both in Jerusalem and in all of Judea and Samaria, and even to the remotest part of the earth. So this pattern is to start with our own Jerusalem. And I noticed that Billy Graham, when he would preach in a city, his organization would work hard to gather the area churches to provide the follow-up for those who came to Christ. And I think that this is, again, a great pattern that we could follow. What we're doing with ifoundpeace.org, it's not .com, but .org, is we're starting with evangelism. And we go and interview pastors, local area pastors, and have them share the gospel and share their testimony. And we put it up on the website. We also get testimonies from people, very interesting people on the web as well. So it's meant to be both local and kind of for people that would be attracted to someone like Justin Bieber. For example, did you know that Justin Bieber appears to have become a solid believer in the last couple of years? And I think seeing and hearing that testimony is very interesting for people. And so if you hear about I Found Peace, you have a friend and they go, well, did you know about Justin Bieber? Well, you can see it here. You can see it at this website. Or the point of the website is to kind of really focus in on the gospel and not provide a ton of apologetics, at least not on those initial pages. We will be providing more apologetics and training on the back side of the website. It will be a membership side of the website.
We believe, and of course that's what this radio program is about, it's what most of our ministries in terms of our monthly meetings and seminars that we do and our newsletter are all about in terms of SABSA. We do not want people kept from a belief in the gospel because they've been told the Bible is passé and that recent creation has been dispelled and therefore you can disbelieve the Bible. We see that same type of foundational support in the documentaries and works you've done, and we thank you for everything that you're doing. What's your website again so people can get this material?
It's www.evidencepress.com.
And again, we thank you for what you do.